Hi everyone, I welcome you to Agile Network India online event. Myself Prachi Arora from organizing team of Agile Network India. And today's topic is how to navigate through real life Scrum challenges. And I take this opportunity to welcome you again to ANI event, and let's begin with the panel discussion. Over to you, Vikram, who is a facilitator of this panel discussion. Thank you.
So, good morning everyone, and I hope everyone is safe and staying at home. As Prachi said, today we are going to have a great panel discussion as we have good set of panelists today who are carrying quite a lot of experience on the technologies, business domains, and the frameworks. So to start the conversation, let's have a quick round of introduction with everyone. So let me introduce myself. Uh, Myself, Vikram Jain. I'm working as a software development manager with one of the well-established startup, LoginRadius, which is in top 30 startups of Canada, and the founders are from India, Jaipur only. I'm carrying around 11 plus years of experience in the IT industry, and out of which 6 years is around agile implementation and the transformations. Previously, I worked with Capgemini, ATCS, and the Soprasteria, CMMI-label companies. I worked on the multiple domains like banking, insurance, and CIM domain. I would like to introduce. I would ask Satish, Senior Project Manager of ATS, to introduce himself. Satish, please.
Yeah, thank you, Vikram. Very good morning, everybody. This is Satish Malhotra, and currently I'm working as a senior project manager in my current organization, ATCS, with having a 15 plus year of experience into this IT domain. I'm involved into working with organization for transforming to agile enable environment. Along with that, I'm having experiences with mobile and web application development in the domains of e-commerce, automobile, healthcare, education industry. As far as the certification, I'm a CSM and a Six Sigma Yellow Belt along with the trainer's profile. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Satish, and welcome to the panel discussion today. Ashish, we have with us who is a VP of Automation and Analytics with GirnarSoft. So may I ask Ashish to introduce himself, please?
Yep. Thank you, Vikram. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the panel discussion today. So I have around 12 years of experience in total in IT industry, majorly specializing into B2B enterprise level products. Domains I worked in are marketing analytics and pricing analytics. I have actually designed solutions for end-to-end data analytics, like involving ETL, DWH, data science, data visualization. Right now, I'm working in a well-known product company, GirnarSoft, who is having around many products like Car Deco, Bike Deco, Insurance Deco, Signals, etc. I have around 5+ years of experience in agile implementation from frameworks, Kanban. If I talk about my certifications, I'm a PSM1 and PSPO1 from SCRUM. I'm looking forward to share my thoughts and experience with all of you guys. Welcome to the event. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashish, and welcome to the panel discussion. We have Manoj Khanna, who is working as a business analyst with Decipher Zone Software. So I request Manoj to introduce himself, please.
Hello everyone, my name is Manoj Khanna and I work as a business analyst in Decipher Zone Software. Along with my current job responsibilities, I have been working in digital marketing domain as well as in project management. I have worked on in education domain and on ERPs and CRMs. Thanks a lot, Vikram. Over to you.
Thanks a lot, Manoj, and welcome. We have Amrita, who is working as a functional manager in result processes with ATCS. So I would request Amrita to introduce herself, please.
Thank you, Vikram. As Vikram just introduced, I am Amrita Jain. I am working in the capacity of function manager, agile processes in advanced technology consulting services, which is popularly known as ATCS in Jaipur. I have a total of 11+ years of experience in IT industry, out of which 6+ years of experience I have working as product owner, scrum master, as an agile coach, and a change catalyst. I have worked in multiple domains, which involves banking, hospitality, automobile, and currently Salesforce. I have experience in agile transformation across organizations and projects. project management, delivery and release management, capacity planning, and budgeting. On the certifications end, I am a certified professional Scrum Master from scrum.org. Thank you.
Thanks, Amrita, and welcome. We have Varun Vatsa, who is a director of Atrium. I would request him to introduce himself, please, Varun.
Thank you, Vikram, and good morning, all. So I'm Varun Vatsa. I have total of around 15 years of experience in IT industry. Currently, I'm working as Director of Enterprise Architecture at Atrium. Atrium is a startup based out of San Diego, operating in machine learning, data science, and intelligent experience domain as of now. Previously, I was associated with a company called Atrium, which is the cloud arm of Wipro, for like 8 years, and I worked there as Senior Manager Solution Architecture. I, along with consulting experience, have some product experience, which I got during my tenure at Naukri.com. So I'm majorly associated with cloud consulting for last 10 years of my career and 15 years of total experience. I've worked in different roles, majorly sales, pre-sales, and delivery, and I'm a certified cloud architect. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Varun. And once again, welcome to all dear panelists. And I'm sure with your experience, we all will get to know a lot. We will get a lot of insights from out of today's panel discussion. So let's start. Maybe you may not know that a lot of survey generally says that 90% of agile teams in the world are using Scrum. Maybe in full manner or maybe in some other way around, like in the form of having the ceremonies and the processes. There are 12 million plus people around the software industry who are using the Scrum. Many organizations have shared quite a lot of success stories with the Scrum. But do we really believe that the road to that success was simple or straightforward, or had a roller coaster ride? So with that, let me introduce the topic for today's panel discussion. That is how to navigate through real life Scrum challenges, and we'll get to know a lot from our experts with their experiences about that. Now to get started, as we all know, there are challenges. There is no road to success without a roller coaster ride. And many organizations already had dealt with those challenges with their Scrum, maybe the implementation or with their Agile Scrum journey. So in the same line, certainly I would like to place a first question in front of our panelists, so that I would love to hear from your thoughts about the most impacting challenges you guys had faced, and maybe some of the small pointers you can also share with us, how you dealt with those challenges. So to start with, I would like to ask Varun. Varun, can you please share your experiences on that?
Yeah, sure, Vikram. So working in consulting domain for like last 10 years, I've got an opportunity to work with many clients who operate in multiple domains, multiple technologies and platforms. So in my experience and my opinion, the biggest challenge that I've faced is on collaboration between the teams and the tools. So for example, if a client is having infrastructure which is half cloud-based, half on-premise, they have ERPs on-premise, then they have CRMs on cloud, and there are teams maintaining all those systems and services and products. So it becomes really challenging during a sprint or in an agile implementation when things are moving really fast and we are adapting to changes. We have a pressure of releasing some deliverables after each and every sprint and release. It becomes really challenging to collaborate between teams and make you can say common release plans, sprint plans, and all those kind of things, because you have so much interdependencies. And as we all know, traditional on-premise systems are pretty complex in terms of from starting development to releasing the product on them, because it requires a lot of change versus modern age cloud you can say implementations which are really fast. Every day you can make releases. So it becomes really challenging to provide you can say a common platform and common release plan and all those kind of things. And solution to that is thorough sprint planning, I would say, so that all the teams, all the related parties for that project or for that release are involved, and they get an agreement upon what needs to be released and how and when are there going to be the touch point between the teams. So in my opinion, sprint planning is really challenging when you are operating in that kind of environment. Thanks, Vikram.
Thanks a lot, Varun, bringing up a quite insightful about the challenge you had faced. And certainly having the same goal and multiple teams working for the same goal becomes difficult sometimes. And on the same lines, I would like to hear some thoughts from Amrita on her experiences. Amrita, please.
So I agree with what Varun said, that collaboration definitely is very challenging when we are working in Scrum or in an agile mode where we have geographically distributed teams using different tools. But what I encountered in my agile transformation journeys was that even before we talk about collaboration, it is the most challenging thing that we have to deal with is with the mindset of the people, because agile is all about delivering quality and delivering fast. As Varun very rightly said, that we have to deliver things very fastly. So all stakeholders have to be on their toes at all the times. Requirements, they keep changing every day, and hence all the other related activities also keep changing. So usually in a normal scenario, people get agitated from all the rework that they are required to do because of all these changes. So mindset is what is very important, and that was very challenging for me to deal with while during my agile transformations. If I talk about a real life scenario or a real life example which I faced in one of my transformation journeys, was that during the planning meetings we decided on a definition of done to be followed for a sprint. And I was amazed to see that at the end of the sprint, very few tickets were there which had actually met the definition of done, and they were actually ready for review. But then on the other hand, instead of finding out a way that what we should have done differently so that we were able to meet the definition of done, we were actually thinking about, okay, let's just remove it from the DoD for the next sprint. I think that is what has to change, that instead of removing things, it's important that we find out solutions to make them happen. So mindset is very challenging, Vikram, according to me, in agile transformation or an implementation of Scrum in any project or an organization.
Thanks a lot, Amrita, and very well said that mindset shift is quite a big challenge in the agile transformation. Thanks for your thoughts. On the same lines, I would like to hear some thoughts from Ashish as well.
Thanks, Vikram. As Varun and Amrita said, they have talked about two dimensions right now. That one is within the team, other one with having multiple teams. I'm adding one more dimension to it, that is the business stakeholders. It's very difficult to sometimes convince business stakeholders on certain things. I will share one of my experience. Our product was actually already into market. It has completed MVP phase, and suddenly our client started complaining that your time to market or of the feature delivery is reducing. And this is something which was a bit surprising for us, because there was no change in the velocity, there was no change in the capacity of the team, but still these type of issues were coming to us. So when we dig deep it down into it, we found out that it is because of our increase in the technical debt. Now, convincing clients on the importance of removing technical debt is one of the biggest challenges that I have faced. Because the first response that we usually get from clients is, why did you write a bad code? It's your responsibility. So I had to struggle a lot to actually convince them that it is not about bad coding. It is integrations, code reviews, a lot of things, that code refactoring that we need to do. Once I convinced them, we were able to mix the functional requirements with the non-functional requirements every sprint, and the impact was visible. We were able to improve our time to delivery at each and every feature, and that was the biggest challenge that I faced while convincing the stakeholders.
Thanks, Ashish, and appreciate your thoughts, and thanks for giving the different dimension about the challenges you had faced. So I would like to hear from Satish as well. What are his challenges?
Yeah, thank you, Vikram. So for me, I mean, I'm also not a different from the thought process what has been shared by the panelist. It is rightly said, whether it is a team collaboration or mindset shift, or even the client management. these all are the challenges, there's no doubt. But what I experienced is basically execution of the retrospectives, right? I think I'm getting a background voice. Okay, now it's clear. Yeah, so my challenge, what I was talking about, was basically handling and executing the retrospectives in the end, because what happened, which is very most interesting case also, like every individual is having a mindset of blaming, which is basically human psychology. And the thumb rule of the retrospective is that it should not be the blame game, whereas it should be the collaborative effort of the team, right? So how a scrum master or a product owner, whoever is handling the retrospective, is going to maintain that dignity and that respect and the decorum, which is a very thin line, basically, handling the problem and blaming to someone for it. Right, this is the most complicated. And generally in the new beginning, in the new teams, right, people are not well adjusted into that mode. And whenever the retro happens, people are always start talking like it happens because of him, that problem occurred because of them, so something like that. So how to overcome that situation, especially in the new teams, is a challenge for me in retrospectives. Thank you, Vikram.
Thanks a lot, Satish. And I can see that we have all different dimensions covering from beginning of the transformation, the technical depths, even when the teams are mature, and all together executing certain ceremonies. So those are really a very practical challenges, and I believe which every team might have experienced with their Scrum journey. And as we know, Scrum itself is based on the empirical process, which is all about learning and the adapting. And I believe that retrospective is an important ceremony through which we can make a quite a lot of differences and can help up to a certain extent in reducing these kind of challenges. And as Satish said, sometimes retrospective itself becomes a challenge to handle. So my next question for the panelists is on the same lines, wherein I would love to hear the thoughts that how your team has been benefited from the retrospective. You guys can share your practical examples to illustrate as well, maybe. And I would like to hear thoughts from Varun first. Varun, can you please share?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Vikram. So, in my understanding, retrospectives have no meaning unless until we take the finding out of it and take an action on it. So, with that said, whenever I get into a retrospective meeting, I go in with three very clearly defined agendas. First, to talk about what went well, so that team starts appreciating what they have been able to achieve during the last or the previous sprint, and they get comfortable knowing, yes, this is what we have achieved, and these are the things we should be thankful about. Then I definitely ask team to talk about if they have any ask, like what can be done better, and like tools, collaboration, or if they have anything in their mind, so that they can again open up on what needs to be done. And thirdly, but the most impactful thing in my understanding is like asking, if you would have to start this sprint again, what you would have done better, and without name calling, talk about that. And when I have that whole understanding, when I prepare a report on that, I definitely make sure to present it to the business sponsors or steering committees, so that an action can be taken on that, so that we can have a better sprint plan. Or if on another project, we can learn from our mistakes and feed into the mechanism of the feedback. And it's not just for the sprint, it's for the overall growth as well. So many times, again, working in consulting, in sprint, it seems like we couldn't work because we were dependent, we were blocked on other team or other tool or this and that. And then many a times it becomes like steering committee or program manager's job to articulate and orchestrate the project work smoothly. So that's how I try to take the retrospectives.
Thanks a lot, Varun. I appreciate your thoughts. And maybe on the same lines, Satish can share your views.
Yeah, Vikram. So if you will ask me, then I would categorize the benefits of retrospective into three major points. Number one is that the process improvement, and definitely when you do retros, you identify what are the loopholes in your, processes, how you are executing your task, and what are the challenges you are facing while doing that, execution of the tasks. And most important thing is that you easily find that these things we are doing wrong, and it is a improvement needed, right? So the first point is process improvement, which really happens in retros. Number two is if we execute defined action items with the team, then team automatically start working towards improvement. So you know that output of the retrospectives are basically action items which we generally distribute among the team members. And if the people are working together on these action items, you find that gradually they start bringing togetherness of doing things well, and they develop the mindset of making things right. So the team improvement and the synergy becomes more in terms of execution. Now the third point which I consider the result of or the benefit of the retrospective is respect. Because again, uh, the moment when you when you stop blaming people, that means this is the time when people start thinking about themselves, where they are making mistake. So if the someone is executing correct retrospective, then it develops a mindset among people of self-judging the execution and the task performances, right? They don't blame people, and it brings synergy. It brings the sync among the team members, and they can deliver things better, and the result, definitely the velocity will be improved. So that three segments I consider the benefits of retrospective. Thank you.
Wonderful thoughts, Satish. Thanks a lot. Uh, Maybe Amrita can also share your views.
Yeah, sure, Vikram. So I rightly agree with what Satish and Varun said, and I very strongly agree with what Varun said, that a retrospective is not beneficial unless we are actually making the changes that have been discussed and we are actually practicing those changes. To add to these things, another thing that we should also be doing out of these changes that have been identified is that we should be reassessing those changes. Because whatever actions you have taken in a sprint to mitigate the problems that were found, they might not be valid for the next sprint, so on and so forth. So it's not just about discussing what was good, what was bad, what can be done differently. Retrospectives are beneficial even beyond that level. So taking a real life example from my experience, in one of the projects we were facing a problem where at the end of every sprint, we faced a situation where the team was not able to burn the story points that were committed. And the reason given was that there was too much of to and fro communication between the product owners and development team for requirement clarifications. And this was in spite of having platforms like refinement meetings and daily stand-ups. Still, there was this lot of communication that was happening. When we drilled down to the problem, we figured out that the problem was not with the development team's understanding. The problem was at the product owner's level, that they were not able to get the right clarity on requirements because they were not equipped with the right tools. They were not authorized to approach the customers for every problem or for any questions they might have. So we worked on that part with the product owners. We worked on the part with the leadership to make sure that the product owner of the projects are well equipped to make sure that the requirement gathering and documentation is done perfectly so that the development team is not affected. We did this for a sprint, and then after a few sprints, we were again faced with another problem, again related to the requirements. And when we reassessed that problem, the change that we made, we figured out that now the problem is at the customer's end, that the customers are not ready a sprint ahead with the requirements or with features they want us to develop. So they are not ready with tickets in the refinement meeting itself. So you see, we've solved the problem, but then if we had not reassessed the problem, we would not have figured out that, okay, there is something that has to be fixed even at the customer's end. So this is how the team benefited from retrospectives. And just to add on to what I said that about the benefits of retrospectives, there is we should look at retrospectives from a different angle also, from a quantitative perspective, that we should show the numbers the team has produced in a sprint to them, and then we assess those numbers against the set targets which can be provided to us from the leadership team according to the business goals, or the team can internally set up those targets for themselves. So when I talk about numbers, they are basically the velocity that the team has committed to, how it was with respect to the previous sprint, and then we analyze that why were we not able to meet that velocity, or why were we not able to do better in terms of the velocity. We can also talk in terms of how much time the team is spending against each story point. Also, we should look at the defects that are being logged, because every delivery we dream of is for it to be a bug-free release. So defects and quality plays a very important role in anything that we deliver. So we should also include the defect numbers, that is how many defects were logged per story points, to figure out where we are with respect to the quality standards. So I usually prepare a dashboard with all these matrices which I pull out from the Jira tool against the logging that the team members have done, and then I present it to them in the retrospectives, and trust me, it's very interactive, because then the team starts coming up with all the practical challenges they face with estimations, with infrastructure, with requirements, and with all the other phases.
Thanks a lot, Amrita. And you rightly said sometimes reassessment of the problem becomes very much necessary. And I would like to hear some thoughts from Ashish as well.
Thanks, Vikram. I think most of the panelists have covered most of the points. So obviously, the sprint retrospective is a very important event for any Scrum team, because there it actually enables you to adapt to different processes. So I would like to add a scenario where I was facing an impediment to get the benefits out of sprint retro. So in a sprint retro, it was about one of the products where we just started the product development. It was the first sprint retro for us. We went with the standard template of what went well, what could be improved upon, and what are the action items to improve those processes. So it was really surprising to me that not even a single ticket was actually mentioned in the section what we could improve upon. As per my experience, in the first sprint, the number should be very high, because it's the first sprint and there is a lot of scope of improvement. When I dig down into it, I talked to each and every team member of Scrum. I got to realize that people are not able to speak up because there was some sort of hierarchy within the organization. Though Scrum doesn't define any as hierarchy, but there was hierarchy in the organization. And Scrum is actually based on trust and courage, and people were not able to speak up in the sprint retro. So that was one of the impediments that I saw, that it is hindering us to get the benefits out of sprint retro. So I came up, not only me, it was a complete team discussion, and we came up with the idea of anonymous sprint retro, where we had it online and people can just put these stickies without any name. And you will not believe that in the next sprint retro, we got around 15 to 20 points where we can see that there are the scope of improvement. And when we worked on it, and there was a lot of improvement in our processes, our velocity as well. So it really helped me a lot. So that's where I would say the benefits are always there, but we also look for the impediments which are hindering us to get those benefits. So that was one of the examples that I faced. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, guys, and I really appreciate your inputs. Maybe I can add on onto that as per my experience. Somewhere, as we all say, that retrospective is to reflect and tune the processes. That can actually occur when teams personify the different aspects of the reflection. And what I understand, I can categorize the different aspects of reflection into the three categories. Maybe one very first is about the reporting and the responding. And as Varun said, whenever we are working on the sprint, and to start with the retrospective, we can talk about the appreciation points, that what went well, and we can appreciate the team, which will of course set the context for the rest of the hour of the discussion. If we are starting with the positive note, maybe the overall aura of the ceremony will set. will be quite insightful and positive. And the second point which I can talk about is the relating and the reasoning maybe. Here, as Amrita said, if we are putting some of the artifacts in front of the team, wherein we are talking about the defect density, we are talking about the velocity, so that if we have some visual artifacts, we can have a good points to relate and to do some of the quite insightful reasoning maybe. And the last aspect of reflection, in my opinion, would be the reconstruction, wherein everybody of you said already that if we are not drawing out a specific set of actions wherein we need to work upon to improve, to reflect, to tune the processes. So the reconstruction is one of the very key aspects of the retrospective. So that's all about the retrospective, and I personally believe that you guys have shared a quite appreciable thoughts on that. And with my experience, we already have the another evergreen challenge with the teams which generally had, and it's been there since ages now. Which when we talk about the estimation somewhere, so my question would be around the estimations specifically. If I say precisely that what steps we should take as a team to continuously reduce the gap between the actual efforts and the utilized versus planned estimates. Maybe you can share some of your experience and examples wherein you tend to reduce that gap with the long journey with the Scrum. So to start with, maybe I would like to hear some thoughts from Manoj, as he's been sitting from long now. Manoj, can you share your thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you, Vikram. So the first thing that comes to everyone's mind is that there is a huge variance in what we are estimating and the actual efforts that are spent in development. So to reduce that variance, first of all, we need to understand about the scales, that what we are on which scale we are estimating. If you are estimating efforts, the efforts of our team, then those are dependent on core competency and USPs of team members. So for a particular task, the effort can be quite less for someone and it can be very high for someone. So that is a very dependent variable. And the second thing is availability of team members. There can be scenarios where the team members are busy with some in-flight tasks, some bugs, or they can be moved to another project. They can move on to another company. Anything can happen. They can either go on leave or half days. What will you do then? So due to these many variables, this estimation in efforts is quite risky, and you will not, I don't think anyone will be able to handle that if you have these many fluctuating variables. So to reduce that, we use a scale that is moreover static, that is sizing, because a difficulty and a size of work will not change. It can fluctuate dependent upon the mindset. But when you spend more time with the team, when the development moves on to sprint by move further sprint by sprint, the collectively the team comes on the same page, have a collective with the collective effort. So I think sizing is a very good way with which we can estimate with which we can reduce this variance a lot, because there are not too many fluctuating variables. That's all I have to say. Thank you, Vikram. Over to you.
Thanks a lot, Manoj, and for sharing your inputs. On the same lines, I would like to hear some views from Satish.
Yeah, Vikram, as rightly said by Manoj, that sizing is one of the measurement unit which can be used to reduce the efforts. But if you'll ask me personally, then especially when the team is new and they are in the process of understanding estimation methods in a sprint, right, then it will generally take 3 to 4 sprints to understand how sizing should be done. Because we can opt sizing, no doubt, but how to use that sizing it itself takes 3 to 4 sprint to understand. Until proper retrospective, again I'm going into the retrospectives, because there we come to know that how many efforts we have deployed and what was the plan, and there we identify the gaps. Basically it is quite visible to everybody that what are the gaps, right? And that gaps you can see when you do retros, and then you start realizing that why it had happened, where the mistake had been done, how it can be overcome with the right sizing methods or right estimation techniques, right? So after 3 to 4 sprint, people start understanding the sizing, and once this understanding develops with the experience, automatically you will find that the gap of estimated efforts and the actual efforts will reduce, right? And then team will improve in that capacity as well. So for me, how it can be reduced? It can be reduced with the experience. By sprint in 2 or 3 or 4 sprints, team automatically start understanding it, and the gap will start reducing it. That's it from my side. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Satish. Ashish, would you like to add on some points on this?
Sure, Vikram. So I have worked in pre-sales for about 3-4 years, and I've used estimation techniques like function points and WBS, which are generally for waterfall models. And in Scrum also we have done a lot of estimations, but let me tell you very frankly, it's a common problem that there is always a schedule variance, always an effort variance, which comes into picture, because it's not easy to actually get closer to actual estimates, because there are a lot of unseen things that comes up when we implement a lot of things. So that is why I would like to focus upon a thing which is very important while estimating, doing estimation, whatever technique you follow, whatever process or framework you follow. But I think dependencies has to be identified very, very well. So I was talking about dependencies. Yeah. Sure. So there are two types of dependencies, as I said. The first one is basically when a user story is blocked by another user story. So once one user story is ended, then only you can start the other user story. While doing sprint planning, we have to take care of these things. Otherwise, the actual estimates will be really different to what we actually have estimated earlier, and it has a very big impact on schedule, not efforts as such, but schedule is very, very much impacted because of it. And the other type of dependency is where we are creating a feature and it is impacting our existing functionalities as well. Unless we do a very thorough impact analysis, it will be really difficult for us to identify what all areas are impacted. So we need to do a thorough impact analysis in these type of dependencies, where people can see, if I do build this feature, what all other features which are already existing is also getting impacted. So according to me, if we want to reduce the schedule variance or the effort variance, we need to do a lot of impact analysis while developing the feature, and also we need to clearly define the dependency and according to that plan out.
Thanks, Ashish, and thanks for your quite insightful inputs. The important point which I can draw out of this discussion about the filling the gaps or reducing the gaps is with time and experience, generally the gap can be reduced, and with the proper impact analysis, proper story groomings maybe. But this reminds me a cone of uncertainty, which actually depicts that with uncertainty, the uncertainty decreases with time, and whenever the team becomes much more mature into the project and the product, and if we are reducing the uncertainty, of course the gap will be reduced automatically. With that, clients, I would go into the different direction now, wherein we all talked about just a few minutes back about the sprint plannings, and we so from there I can put up a different real life of challenge in front of you guys, wherein when we talk about the sprints, so even after having the directed sprint planning, we cannot avoid the urgent task. We cannot avoid the on-demand task within the sprint. So I would like to hear your thoughts that how should we handle those urgent and the on-demand tasks with the ongoing sprint? Maybe to begin with the discussion on this, I would invite Manoj to share his views.
So the in-flight tasks have always been a problem for the Scrum for the teams. So there is a technique that is quite popular with management institutes that I would like to share for prioritizing these tasks. The technique is called Eisenhower decision matrix. So the these tasks can be categorized depending upon importance and urgency of them. So where we can categorize that if a task is important as well as urgent, we have to do it within the sprint and as quickly as possible. If a task is important but not urgent, we can schedule it. If a task is not important but urgent, we can delegate it, whether it will cause an impediment on the ongoing work or for the upcoming sprints work. So we have to delegate it. If a task is not important and not urgent, we can eliminate it if we don't have the room within the sprint. So these are dependent on our priorities. Moreover, the second thing is when we plan the sprints, we should reserve some teams working capacity so that we can handle these uncertainties of in-flight tasks, bugs, and some to remove some technical debt. So that is also dependent on our priorities, but it is a good way to handle these uncertainties. So there's another problem within this is that sometimes we get too frequent requests. So for that, we can do is appoint a goalkeeper within the team, so that the goalkeeper should be someone who has been working within this team for a while, and it would be great if they are technical, because that will help a lot to absorb these in-flight tasks into the ongoing work. If we are not able to absorb these tasks, so the non-dependent tasks can be rolled over to further sprints. So eventually the team can communicate within themselves and with the product owners, so that we can incorporate these tasks into in-flight into the ongoing sprint, and we can roll over the tasks which are not independent, which are not dependent, can be rolled over to further sprints. Thanks a lot, Vikram. Over to you.
Thanks a lot, Manoj. I appreciate your thoughts. On the same lines, I would like to hear some views from Varun.
Yeah, thanks, Vikram. So, as rightly mentioned by Manoj, the Agile is often misunderstood for flexibility of asking changes whenever and however people feel like. Agile flexibility is majorly misunderstood, but it's not like that. So you have already planned a sprint, you have deliverables to get out of at every sprint and releases. So as Manoj mentioned, I also try to categorize tasks into important, urgent and important, and all those kind of things, and then prepare get the team prepare a report, do impact analysis, and prepare a criticality report. Because whenever a client is asking a change, he always feels his change is always urgent and always important, but it's not always true, because those need to be considered as an exception, especially again with the theme what I am talking about of multiple and diverse teams. It becomes really challenging. So if a change is affecting one team or other, so criticality and impact analysis is really important. Once we have done that, once we have categorized our task into the category of urgent and really important, which can't be missed, we present that report to steering committee and the decision makers on the project or the program, and ask their decision or ask their direction on how to proceed forward. Should we pause the current release cycle? Should we get it into the existing DevOps or release cycle, or we create an out-of-box exceptional release cycle to get that change accommodated? Because many times, even however the important or urgent the task is, it's not beneficial to derail the existing ongoing work, because then there are multiple teams associated, and that's where the criticality and impact analysis report comes in. So what makes most sense? So in my experience and past project delivery experiences that I have, many times we have created new exceptional sprint or release in parallel to that ongoing sprint, or many times we have delayed the release, but that totally depends on what makes the most sense, and that's on the ground and really exceptional. If those kind of on-demand tasks you see coming every now and then in every sprint, then it's not exceptional, then it's a behavior or mindset change, as what panelists have talked about and discussed about, to make sure that agile is taken in the right sense of agility, not of asking anything and any time. So that's how I have seen it. Thanks, Vikram.
Thanks a lot, Varun. Thank you. I appreciate your thoughts really. And yep, as you rightly said, agility should be taken in the right sense. So maybe Amrita, would you like to share your views on that?
Yeah, sure, why not? So one of the main agile principles is that we should be responding to change quickly. So there is the word change itself in the definition of agile. So that means change is inevitable, and we cannot say no to changes, because as Scrum goes, Scrum is bounded by a principle that you cannot inject any new requirements once the sprint backlog has been created. So if we get a change coming in between the sprint, that would be a one-off scenario. I mean, if it is coming in regularly, I mean, in every sprint we are getting some or the other change from the customers, then we are definitely doing the sprint planning correctly. We are not doing it rightly. So that is something, that's a different case. But where we are getting these changes very frequently, then I think the best approach is, as Varun and Manoj said, to prioritize those changes. You have to first understand what's the priority of those changes. If they are very critical changes, then of course we have to do it in the current sprint. Doing in the current sprint doesn't mean we just directly take it up in the sprint and start working on it. We also have to see the impact of the change on the existing sprint and the functionality. If we see that the impact is huge, it makes more sense for us to replan the entire sprint, to do a re-sprint planning and take up tickets which are dependent on that particular new change that has come in and work around that. But if it's a very less impacting change, and if it's a very small change which can be absorbed in the sprint, we should go ahead and do it. The idea is that we should not be saying no to the customers for a change, because then we are not doing justice of saying that we are flexible because we are agile. So we have to be flexible in such a way which is in a balanced way, such that the customers are happy and the development team is also able to deliver. So that's the reason why. So we talked about customer satisfaction here in urgent on-demand changes. How do you make sure that your development team is not getting overburdened? For that, you have to ensure that you are keeping aside some bandwidth. So what I usually do is I never plan my team to 100% capacity. I plan them to a maximum of 90% to capacity, where I have a buffer of unplanned leaves which the team members might take up, and for all these small ad hoc changes which might come in during the sprint. So that's the best way to go about it, that you are responding to change, you are responding to it fastly, you are delivering the best quality, and you are also ensuring customer satisfaction.
Thanks a lot, Amrita. Ashish, would you like to share your views maybe on this?
Yeah, sure, Vikram. So I think this is one of the most common problems that everybody sees, and the solutions to it are also very common. So as Manoj, Varun, and Amrita has said, these are very common solutions to this problem. So I would, what I have done in my professional career is I've responded to these kind of situations in multiple ways. So I would just like to point out three solutions that I have implemented, or we as a team have implemented in our product development. Is the first one obviously is to reprioritize the sprint without and obviously having sprint goal in mind. So if we think that we can still achieve the sprint goal by accommodating this ad hoc request, we should go ahead and do it by deprioritizing some other user stories or tasks. But if you feel that it won't be possible to achieve that sprint goal, we might have to actually cancel that sprint and restart with a new sprint. That is also one thing which can be done. The other thing that can be done, as Amrita has also said, that we should not plan for a full capacity in each sprint. We should plan it for about 80 to 90% of the peak capacity, so that you have the bandwidth to actually accommodate this kind of systems. That is another common solution. And the third thing, which also we have implemented, which is obviously not as per the Scrum guidelines. Sometimes what we did is, because these kind of requirements were coming very frequently, and we were having 1 month sprint. So after 1 month, it was to wait to incorporate those requirements for 1 month was really difficult. So we reduced the size of sprints for about 3-4 sprints, just to make sure that once the product is stabilized and we receive less number of ad hoc requests, then we can go back to 1 month sprint, and that is what we did. And obviously, it is out of Scrum framework guidelines, but yes, this is a practical scenario which we did, and we were able to achieve a lot of success out of it.
Thanks a lot, Ashish, and thanks for sharing the wonderful ways to handle the situations. And I appreciate that. I just planned down to summarize some of the important points which I can draw out. The very first point which I can see is categorization the task which is important, urgent. Maybe the second point, better capacity planning might help in this as well. Apart from that, the discussion and the reprioritization of the some of the priority tasks or the low priority tasks within the sprint, and then pushing back to the backlog might help sometimes. And altogether, the different thought which I can I hear from the Ashish is about the resizing or the reducing the sprint size. So those are the quite insightful ways to handle the situations. And of course, I can hear you guys throughout the whole day. But as we have the time foundations and we have a lot of questions from the audience as well in our plate to talk about. So in that direction, maybe I would like to, I can see a very wonderful question. One of the audience, Rahul, has put in over here that apart from the Scrum, do you see that some other frameworks might also help with the good agile transformation with good agility? So on that question, maybe it's open to all. Maybe Ashish, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, sure, Vikram. So obviously, Scrum, as you already mentioned in the starting of this panel discussion, that Scrum is the most widely used. However, there is one more framework that people generally use, that is Kanban. But it depends on the what phase of product development you are in. So if it is a new product where there is lot of uncertainty in place, so there are more unknowns than known, then we generally follow Scrum only. But let's say suppose we are getting into maintenance phase and the product is stabilized and we are just doing some very usual product feature development, then we should move to Kanban. But for Kanban, we need to have a lot of other type of facilities available or infrastructure available. So I would suggest that like monitoring tools has to be there. You need to have CI/CD pipeline in place. So that kind of stuff is required in Kanban. But from my experience, what we did was we follow a combination of Scrum and Kanban. We call it a Scrumban, where we were following all the Scrum ceremonies. We were planning sprints and everything, but we were always also ready for any time release. So we had the CI/CD pipeline implemented. Whenever a developer commits anything, there is a test suite that runs, and once the pipeline is in, then only the commit was successful. So we were always ready for any time release. So that has helped in adapting to the situation. What was the business stakeholder asking for? But yes, Scrum and Kanban and Scrumban are the three frameworks we generally use in product.
Thanks a lot, Ashish. And rightly said, there are many frameworks available in the Agile world, and it just depends on your business requirement which suits the best to you. Maybe the combination of few, maybe the mechanical Scrum, maybe the Kanban, Scrumban, the XP are there. So there are lots of frameworks available. So it depends on your requirement. So I believe, Rahul, you got your answer. And apart from that, I can see one more quite quite a good question, which as I said, Mr. Vasu, that I would like to discuss about the product refinement as well, as this is one of the key part, and if the stories are groomed properly, we'll have a high productivity in the quality. So of course, we can talk a bit about the product refinement. So how should we? What I understand is the question may be that how well and what are the good processes to do the good product refinement as well. So it's a question open to all. Maybe who would like to answer it?
So Vikram, I would like to answer this question. Amrita this side. So product backlog refinement is a very important ceremony, which usually most of the Scrum teams mix with the planning meetings. And at the end, what happens is that if you are not refining the backlog before the planning meeting, you end up taking stories which have open questions or which have dependencies on customers or which are not ready for development in your sprint backlog. And then while you're in your sprint, you affect the velocity of your sprint also. So the best practice is to, like, usually projects have a 2-week sprint. The best practice is to always have your refinement meetings at least a week before your planning meeting. So at the end of the first week of the sprint, you should always plan a refinement meeting where before that, what's important is that the product owner discusses the requirements which are next important or which are the potential sprint backlog items. The product owner should discuss them with the customers. And the tickets should be prepared. There's something called as a definition of ready, which means that the tickets should be complete with respect to requirements, with respect to acceptance criteria, with respect to all the business rules and validations, so that when you are presenting it in front of the team understands the requirement and there has to be a brainstorming session on the requirement. The idea is that when that ticket is presented in the planning meeting, the team is ready to give an estimate for that. It should not be that you are asking open questions on that particular ticket during the planning meeting. So you should always have this refinement meeting a week before the planning meeting. That's the best practice, so that any open questions are there, the customers would also need some time to get back to you, and for the product owners to again update the ticket. So that's how we should be going about doing the backlog refinement meetings. And this should not be done keeping the next sprint in mind. This should actually be done keeping the backlog in mind, that, you know, we should have in mind that at least we are ready for the next 3 sprints, the next 3 upcoming sprints. So the backlog should be refined to that level. I hope I have answered it to the expectations, Vasu.
Yeah, Vikram, I would also like to add a couple of points to Amrita, what Amrita has said. There are a lot of techniques also for doing product refinement. So product refinement, as I understand it, there are 2 types of things that you need to do. One is obviously defining the product backlog items, explaining it in detail. That is one task. The other task is also prioritization. So all the product backlog items have to be prioritized accordingly. So there are a lot of techniques for prioritization, like impact mapping is one. Then there is story mapping, which can be done. So I can talk about it in detail, but I think because of the time limitation, I would like Vasu to actually explore these kind of techniques, which are very important for prioritization of product backlog items. Also, if I talk about the defining techniques of the product backlog items, there are techniques like build plan as needed. So you plan. So let's suppose for next 3-4 sprint, you need to be ready with your items at a very high level, so that once the next sprint is coming up, you can detail them out. And also you have a vision for, let's suppose, 12 months down the line. So or we need to categorize this, and this technique is known as build plan as needed. So these are the famous techniques that can be used for product refinement. Yes, all of them are present on internet, so one can go and just browse through them. Yeah, that's it from my side.
The next question we have is how to make the team realize that sprint review is a very important event and team should prepare for it and take pride in presenting their work done. So Satish, can you want to take up this question?
Yeah, sure, Prachi. So when it comes on the sprint review, so anyways, it is the most important ceremony, which is basically everyone is working, entire effort, all the things people are only doing to get a perfect sprint review, right? So what I believe in terms of sprint review, first of all, the entire team should focus on the priorities which had been already set in the sprint planning meeting, and then the sprint review will be called along with the invite or product owner, right? And then sometime client comes in the sprint review, but I think as per the agile or as per the scrum rules, client presence is not mandatory. It is optional if client wants to come, but product owner must be the part of the sprint review meetings. And then the approach of presenting the sprint review is story by story. So if you are having a 10 or 15 stories in your sprint, then the ideal way of presenting is that you should display the feature story by story, priority wise priority, right? So that you can have a productive feedback, because every user story is having its own functionality and feature listing, and once you are presenting them, then definitely the respective feedback will come, which will make the entire sprint planning meeting more productive. Sometime another approach like I used to do this approach is that I club entire team and tell them to present their respective stories, because anyways if there are 15 stories and if there are 5 or 6 team members, so on an average everyone is having around 2 to 3 stories to execute in a one sprint. So it's nice that you give a chance to each team member to present their own stories in the sprint the review meetings, so which will not only connect the team with the product or with the application development and give that pride of presenting his or her own task in front of the client or product owner, which again brings the people close, and it becomes the synergy in the team. So that is how we execute the sprint review meetings in our end, and that is my experience of doing it. Thank you.
Yeah, so my question is like while we are talking of impediments and retrospects and the flexibility and everything, now in Agile, we also, in Agile or Scrum, there is also one of the attribute as courage. Okay, so what if the client is coming with changes from time to time? Do we have the courage to say no to it, and how do client react to it? So I would like to know that. If any experience, please share.
I would like to put myself into this. It's really very interesting. This is Satish, and I don't think so anybody is has not experienced this in his agile journey, right? So uh, I should say, if courage comes with the right wording, it works. You know, like the presentation of saying no sometimes works well, what I have experienced. But yes, definitely, as there was one question in the discussion regarding the on fly task which comes, which is quite related to your questions, Mananita, uh, where you get a task in between while executing your existing sprint, which is basically ad hoc tasks which you get. And definitely convincing to client, that is the first thing which needs to be done by the product owner. But if it is not possible and it is a business this is a current hour need of the business, then definitely you need to address. And the solution what Amrita said, like don't plan your sprint 100%. If you'll go with the 80 or 90% of sprint planning, then you will have 10% or 15% of buffer, I mean the spare, which you can use to execute these all ad hoc tasks. But anyways, this is the reality. I mean, we need to accept it, but it should be related to executing the stuff on time. The entire sprint should not be suffered because of the new task. This is the most important thing. It should not happen because of one task. At the end you will find that entire sprint is not able to deliver, which is a basically more dangerous situation because of one task or one user story. You are not able to deliver 15 others user stories of the sprint. So by just keeping this thing in your mind, and by planning 90%, keeping 10% buffer, I think we can accommodate. With my experience, at least, we have accommodated almost all the requests by implementing this way to the client, and client and team both can be kept happy in this case. Thank you.
To add on to what Satish said, courage is also if you can tell your customers with proper reasoning, you give them options. So as we discussed in the question that was also part of the panel, that how do we entertain these ad hoc requests? The best approach is you can never go and tell your customers bluntly that no, we will not take it because we are following Scrum. You have to tell them that, you have to give them a reason that, this change is taking this much time. We have these many days left within the sprint. This is the impact that this change might have on the existing sprint or on the application. Are you ready to take the risk? So you should always, because understand, the customer is the king for us. Be it any industry, the customer is the king. If the customer is ready to take that risk and he says us, okay, fine, I'm okay with this, but I want this change to be taken up, even if we have to replan the sprint, I am okay with this. So I don't think we are in a situation to say, no, we will not change the sprint or we will not replan. The idea is present your customers with the right options, give them the right options, show them the true picture of the change that they're asking us, that how it will impact the sprint in terms of, again, numbers. So number plays a very important role. You tell them the efforts, you tell them the days, you tell them the impact, and I think you will have your answer.
Yeah, so surely, I mean, I'd like to add on to what Amrita and Satish said. Courage is definitely a value pillar for Scrum and Agile, as well as, I mean, so the question was, how should we say no, or should we have that courage and all those kind of things? So it totally depends on the model you are engaged in with your client. So there is a model of partnership where your client trusts you, you have delivered all the right value to their client, as well as there is a model of staff augmentation, which many companies in India work as well. So there is a very, I mean, again, there is situation to situation. It depends, and I would kind of agree with what Amrita said. So if you are presenting all your reasoning, if you are giving all the logical reasons that why we are saying or why we are pushing back on a certain change that's been asked for, and if you are working in a partnership mode with your client, I'm sure they'll understand what you're suggesting, what you're recommending. Also, again, as a different word to speak what Amrita said, you just present the options to client. Like, this is, if we accommodate this change, we'll push the release by this much time, or we have these many challenges in accommodating this change here and there, and then let your client decide. I mean, courage is not always stepping up and saying, no, we'll not do it. It's courage is about presenting the right information, right logic in front of your stakeholders, in front of your decision makers. So you are not hesitating. You are just not getting under pressure. No, we need to do it. You just are presenting like 3 options to your stakeholders, client, whosoever is asking that change, and let them take the decision, let them make the decision. You have listed out what will it take, what is going to be the impact, and all those kind of things. I hope that answers the previous question. That's the only thought I wanted to add here. Thanks.
And also,
I have one more.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, Manoj.
Yeah. So regarding that current question, I would say that we maintain the control process forms. So if someone is demanding a risky implementation, then with these control process, we held them accountable, and we can evaluate what it has done to the current development. So we keep on evaluating these things, and if we have keep on getting the incoming changes and incoming risks, so we can evaluate, are they worth to be taken, and we can deny on that factor, because we can, since the stakeholders are and the client is also accountable here, we can deny their request, showing them that this was your previous request and this is how it has impacted the development. Thanks a lot.
Okay, so I have one more question from Shweta. I would say it's, do you suggest capacity being, I'm sorry, capacity being planned in hours or story point? So do you want me to repeat
I
the question?
no, it's quite clear actually. Let me take this up again.
Okay.
These all are very favorite questions actually. I mean, again, when we talk about the estimations, this is the biggest challenge where people don't understand about story points. So first of all, we should understand the difference between estimation and sizing. I mean, estimation is something where people think that it is a hours estimation, like I can do this task in 5 hours or 10 hours or 15 hours, something like that. So when you will ask to team, they will say, I'll do in 8 hours, I'll do in 10 hours. But when we talk about the sizing, so sizing and estimation units are different. So story point and hours is a basically measurement units, right? Like for example, the another example we can say for the kilometers and meters, right? So the point is, uh, while doing the complexity measurement, while doing the sizing, you are considering the effort. That means how many hours you are going to take to execute that task. The complexity, what is the complexity of the task or the user story you have, and the uncertainty also. So this is equal to basically effort plus complexity and uncertainty. And on the basis of that, you have created one unit that is called story point, right? And now the story point can be with the various methods. People are talking about t-shirt sizing, people are talking about Fibonacci series methods, right, where you are using Fibonacci series numbers as a story point measurements. But that is the way of doing the sizing of a user story, which is being recommended by Agile, right? That is my thought on this question. And anyone else can also light on the on thoughts.
Yeah, it would be better if you guys can put up your thoughts over the chat box, and we need to keep it a time box. So now it's time to, maybe I can take a last question from the audience pool so that we will be finishing it off on the time. Uh, there is a wonderful question which I can see from the audience is, can the partnership model with the client work? How much percentage of the clients are okay on this model? So what I understand from this question is, maybe if a kind of PO from the client side might help the Scrum team to work upon. So that kind of partnership model might helpful or not? Anybody would like to answer it? Maybe Ashish, you can throw some light on this.
So I'm not clear of the question. What is partnership model with client? But as I understand what you said, that we have Scrum team distributed. Some of the Scrum team members are from the client side, and some of the Scrum team members are from our side. Then it becomes a model of partnership. I think so. That was the question all about. But according to me, once you are a part of a Scrum team, there is no client, no vendor. It is all about one team, and the product owner is the sole person who can take the decisions. He has the role to play to convince the business stakeholders, or even the end users, I would say. So it's one team, whether it's from client or from vendor. It's just one team, and there should not be any person saying that I am from client, that's why I hold more account or more account responsibilities and accountability. It's the role that is deciding it, not your company. According to me, that's what I feel.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, Varun, do you want to add on to this?
Yeah, surely. So as I mentioned earlier too, so while doing Scrum or Agile, we play by the roles. So if you are in the role of a Scrum Master, if you are in the role of a development team, or if you are in the role of a product owner, project owner, or anything like that, if you are in service industry, so you play by the role. When you talk about partnership model with client, is this possible? How much percentage of clients okay on this model? So when I say that, it totally depends on the mindset of the client. So if it's a organized client which understand the agile, and even if it's a waterfall based client and we are trying to move them or ask them to work in agile mode, it becomes our responsibility and our job to explain them all the pros and cons, as I mentioned earlier too. So how many percentage of client are okay on this model totally depends what client. I mean, it's not always the client choose us. We also choose what client we need to work with. So it's not about how many percentage of clients are okay on this model. What client need at the end is value add to whatever the money they are spending. And if you are putting on table the real solution ROI for them, if you are able to explain this is the ROI you will get out of that, I believe the stakeholders or the decision makers will always choose whatever is in their better interest. But if you are unable to articulate and explain why you are getting in a partnership model, why you are asking teams to perform or doing sprint planning and all those kind of things, maybe you are the expert because of which you are doing, and you are as well as helping client understand how to get agile, how to work on that. So you all just need is to put the ROI on the table, explain it to client, this is the return of investment you will get. And if they agree, I mean, definitely, if somebody is paying you money, you are presenting them with the best possible options. If they agree, fine. If they don't, I mean, yeah, then courage comes in. Yep.
Thanks a lot, Varun. You correctly said it depends on the maturity of the client. So, to be on the time box, it's time to conclude the panel discussion. And personally, I would like to thank to every panelist and thanks to participant to hear the different insights from all of our panelists. And I believe you might have got quite a good insights on to the different questions. So I will hand over to Prachi to conclude. Prachi, please.
So thank you everyone to join us on this event, and